Humanode fans, believers into direct democracy and real per human decentralization, looking how people build complex system not only in the internet, but today we'll be talking about building new social systems offline as well in real life, which once was only a dream of crypto people back when people were dreaming of BTC hitting, I don't know, 10K. It sounded impossible 10 years ago or so, but today it's pretty much the reality. And we're having Lonis with us today, who is a, well, serial crypto entrepreneur. He was working on decentralized organizations even before he started to work on Prospera, which was D work, correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
And you're probably still using it in Prospera
To some extent.
to some extent, yeah. And yeah, today we'll be talking about a lot of different things, network states, which are like new types of, let's say, decentralized organizations which are going from online into offline as per the theory of Balaji. But it feels like Prospera wasn't offline online, it went offline first, right? So it had a different path from the one described in the
It had.
theory of network states. Yeah. And
Correct.
it's really interesting to hear how did you pull it off? Like from the very beginning, I would
Sure.
say. Yeah, the cold start problem of such a massive project. I mean,
Sure,
you
sure,
know the
sure.
statistics of Prospera better. Just to give people an idea how you're not a, let's say, at the stage of Liberland, which is somewhere on the borders of Serbia, which is kind of much less developed than Prospera in Honduras right now. Yeah, could you please, like in few paragraphs, give people an idea of what Prospera is now? And I think after they know it, it will be even more exciting to hear how you actually pulled it off.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so thanks for having me. So with Prospera, we're basically inventing a new industry that we call governance as a service, right? Governance as a service. So basically we partner with host countries, in the first case Honduras, to basically deploy zones where we have most of our own laws, regulations, and taxes. Right, so on a very high level, you can think of it, our zone here in Honduras as Hong Kong and China. Right, the zone, it's a special economic zone. It's part of a host country, but within the zone, it has very different legal and regulatory and justice system. Right, and the difference though is that we are a private company, right, administering the governance services. So we are helping administer the rules themselves, the security, the justice system, etc. And then our business model is taxes, right? So that's basically how it works. We're live now with our first zone here on the island of Roatan in the Caribbean, which is outside of Honduras. But the goal is, of course, to have these types of zones all around the world, right? So we're talking with governments in Eastern Africa, in different parts of Latin America, to be able to expand eventually. But currently, we're still, based here on the island of Roatan. And I think when I joined a year ago, we were maybe, 100, 150 people living here. And now I think we're more than 200, 250 people living here. So we're growing quite fast, but obviously from a low baseline.
Yeah, and and you don't take into account people coming and going.
Yeah, many thousands of visitors, right? We've had a lot of these pop-up cities here. I guess the original pop-up city after Susalu, I guess, was the Vitalia conference here last year. So, Brian Armstrong came here, then Balaji, Naval, Brian Johnson, of course, and thousands of other participants as well.
Awesome. What was the number of people going through as, let's say, tourists, entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, so we are a zone based on the island of Roatan, right? So Roatan is a massive tourist island already. It has around 100,000 people living here, but it has 1.2 million visitors per year. So most of these visitors, they come for the scuba diving and the beaches and stuff like that. So there's already massive amounts of tourism on the island. Of course, the people who come to Prospera specifically are a bit different than the typical, Caribbean tourists. Many people come here are entrepreneurs or digital nomads or expats or those types of people who want to set up something new and be on the frontier in some way.
Cool, cool. And okay, let's delve a little bit, if you can, of course, talk about it into how do you actually, well, benefit the government where you are creating this cities. You said that your business model is taxes, right?
Right.
and
Correct.
and at the same time, what's the government getting in return?
Yeah, no, for sure. So the framework on which we're building is the SEDE law, which is a law that was passed before we came in, actually. It was passed in 2013 by Honduran economists, most prominently Octavio Sanchez and Carlos Pineda. And the SEDE law is basically stands for the Zones for Economic Development and Employment. Right? So the purpose of these zones is to generate investment and jobs. That's the purpose of it. That was also why it passed with almost 80% of the votes when it was passed. And so that's what we're doing. We're in the business of job creation. We've only been here now for a few years, but we've already generated more than 3,000 jobs. And that counts direct jobs and indirect jobs. And these jobs are at least 25% higher in average, salary than the national average.
And this is
So
like jobs for the local people mostly, right?
these are 3,000 local jobs, correct? We have more jobs if you count the non-local jobs as well. And so, and that's by far the biggest mandate we have. Create jobs. Honduras has more than 50% unemployment rate, more than 50% poverty rate, right? So this having a job is not nice to have here. It's a critical thing. And then secondly, we also have a tax revenue share, right? So even though, as you say, we collect the taxes, 12% of the taxes that are collected goes directly to the Honduran government. And that is essentially a profit share because they have no service obligation within the zone, right? They don't provide any security or an infrastructure or anything else. All of that is privately provided by Prospera. However, the government still has this 12% revenue share. So those are two main incentives for the government.
So when you say the infrastructure is private, you're also talking about, let's say, sewers, water, electricity, like all of it.
Of course, but that's the case in most places, right? In most places, those things are privatized. What's unique with Prospera is also that the governance services are privatized, meaning we have a court system based on private arbitration, right? So not really public courts, but private arbitration, which is private courts. We have, when it comes to most of the services that the governments would typically provide for you, which is like processing tax claims or dealing with security matters, that's also provided by Prospera, the company, right? And so that's the unique part, is that the government services are mostly privately provided.
That's interesting. If we go back to the 4chan stories predicting the future, it was usually stated that the crypto billionaires are going to create castles on the islands, which usual people won't be able to go to. And I wonder, like, how does it look like in Prospera? Like, do you have a huge fence which is around the Prospera territory, so that the average Joe just can't come in on your territory, or how is it really there?
I'm curious. I guess I'm just curious to hear your thought on this. Why would we have that? What would be our incentive for that?
The security. Just let's say it's easy to find out that pretty much very rich people come to Prospera. And since you say the security is even provided by the Prospera, like almost as if you have your own police or guards.
I mean, the worst way to do security is to keep everyone away. I mean, that's not security. That's just defensiveness. That's just that's not
Okay.
security. That's just keeping yourself off.
The best way is
Security,
to have cameras everywhere.
security in its proper form is seamless access control that keeps out people with a criminal background, but lets everyone else in. That's proper security, proper access control. And so it's not at all like the movies. The reality is that Prospera is the most open jurisdiction in the world. In Prospera, we don't discriminate based on your background or your CV or whatever else. If you sign up online, we do a quick background check, so you don't have a criminal background, right? For safety reasons. However, if you don't have a criminal background, you can come into the zone, get an apartment, rent a room, do business, go to a coffee shop. So it's the reverse, and the reason for it is obvious, right? We want as much economic activity as possible. It never makes sense to have the big walls. It's just in the movies, or if you have terrible security, right? If you have bad security, what you're trying to do is just keep everyone away. But if you have found a way to privatize it in an efficient way, then you can have an open system that is still safe.
Exactly, exactly. It's like when you have bad security, you're trying to make your code as private as possible so that the attacker cannot see the flaws in your code and the exploits
Right,
there.
right.
Nice, nice. And okay, I would go and ask one of my favorite questions. What about some governance experiments that you're doing there? Like in the theory of Balaji of network states, at least he's look at it, or is that people who live in modern traditional states eventually have network states as an exit from their current society, which they don't
Right.
want to live it anymore for different reasons. And network states are usually led by some kind of founder who makes his own rules. And the idea is that there is not much democracy going inside, but it's just whether you accept the rules proposed by the founder of the network state, or if you don't accept, you can just leave. There is always an exit. That's
Yeah.
so.
Yes. And I'm kind of I understand what they mean with this, and I agree with it. Right? It's a voluntary experiment. You can opt into it or you can opt out. However, I don't think that should be an excuse to not try to learn from the past 300 years of governance experiments and try to figure out. Yes, people can opt in, they can opt out, but we should still uh, aim to create a system that is as well structured as possible, regardless. Right? So we are doing a few things around that. So one is that it's a mixed democracy system, right? So to get the law passed in Prospera, we have a public arm, which is a mayor and stuff, and they are democratically elected. But then we have the private arm, Prospera Inc., which is where I work. And to pass a law, you need both arms to agree, because you need an absolute majority, right? So that means that we have democratic input. However, we don't have the dynamic where 51% of people can just extort the other 49%, which we see all the time otherwise, right? So we have this double veto that keeps the checks and balances. So I think we've innovated on the checks and balances approach. That's one thing. A second thing we're doing is we give legal stability guarantees. So that means that when you come here to Prospera, you sign a resident agreement. And that resident agreement, it gives you a bunch of things. It gives you in a contractual form, it gives you the Bill of Rights. That's the US Bill of Rights. Those are the rights. We also have a few rights on top of that. And if those would be breached, you can go to in the independent court or independent arbitration center and sue us. Right? It's a breach of contract. And then on top of that, we also have this legal stability guarantee that extends to taxes and regulations. So we can never increase the taxes on you. Right? You will always be grandfathered into the best possible tax regime, even if we change the taxes for others. But once you sign on to your resident agreement, you have clear predictability. And the purpose of that is, of course, to avoid what we see in many other jurisdictions where you come there, you set up your family and your business there, and then there's an election, right? And then everything changes and you have no predictability. In Prospera, you have contractually guaranteed predictability around those things. So those are, I guess, two examples on how we are innovating governance.
Yeah, this is very nice. And in the context of a decentralized network, so it would look like, let's say, you have stakers, right? In the proof of stake network, right? You have
Right,
stakers, and there is a vote between them. But then in parallel, there is a democratic vote of, let's say, all the validators, like in Humanode.
right,
Yeah, and then both parts should agree on something, otherwise it won't go through.
correct.
Interesting, interesting. And any kind of tooling you use, or like how in general the democratic procedure goes on? Do you have a lot of people coming through it, like a lot of people voting? Most of them are voting, or most of them are, is there any governance fatigue because of too many proposals, votes, and if anybody can,
No,
if anybody
no, no.
can do a proposal or not?
Certainly not. No, I'm not a fan of direct democracy at all. I think the direct democracy is probably the worst form because it makes it the easiest for the 51% of people to subject the 49 to their will. And so we don't have that. We have, you democratically elect council members, right? And so the council members then act on your behalf. And then there's, every 4 years or so, I forgot the exact number. I think it's four. It could be another number. But every X years, there's an election of the council members. Um, and so, but the crucial thing though is that most laws are not needed, right? So it's not voting fatigue; it's a lack of voting, the lack of proposals. Most things should not be government mandated, right? That's our belief. Most things should be private contracts between individuals, right? We should have a small governance layer, we should have a small state, right? That is that's always the goal. So most things, in our opinion, can be handled between parties. They can go to an arbitration center if needed. Obviously, they rely on common law here, right, which is legal code based on thousands of years of disputes and people figuring out how to relate to each other. So most of that can be done decentralized, and we don't need that much done on the legal, on the kind of law layer, let's say.
Okay, so how do you approach public goods then? Let's say there is a park on your territory, right? Uh, is it based on pure donations of individuals who want a new bench in the park, or okay, how would it work?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So, well, two things. One is many times I think that public goods can actually be localized to some neighborhood, right? So if you have real estate developers that is building out a district, right, then they have the benefit, the value of their property goes up if they have some public spaces, right? And so I think many public goods, not all maybe, but many public goods can be,
Just
the
local
value of those.
coordination, very local coordination, yeah, without
Yeah, they can.
even they can create any system they want, like a parallel system for their own local coordination to improve things, right?
Sure, sure. Because many real estate developers, they're not just building one building and then another one's building one building. Many times, the real estate developers taking more of a district level approach, right? And in those districts,
Yeah, of course, the
they
city design should be intact. Otherwise, you will have not the best city construction and facilities. Yeah.
right, right. So that's number one. I think much of it can be private, can be internalized locally, and so but some things can't, right? And so to solve the public action problem, we actually have incentive to do so, right? Because we are a private player that is caring about the entire jurisdiction, entire zone. So we can, from our side, we can choose to invest in public infrastructure, like a park, let's say, because we kind of extract a percentage of the entire GDP of the zone. So we want to maximize how many people want to live here, how many businesses want to do business here, and because we extract 5% of the personal income tax, we take 2.5% sales tax, we have a 1% Georgia's land value tax, and the 1% corporate tax, right? So the better GDP, the more people living there, the more business doing there, the better we earn. So we actually have an incentive to provide public goods if and when needed.
Okay. So all based on, let's say, private incentives, and not just trying to predict what everybody would want, right? But
Right.
interesting approach. Interesting. By the way, I would argue that direct democracy is a better approach, because we never had direct democracy in our worlds. So in our view, representative democracy fails a lot, because when you elect the person, it's not even the person that was before the election anymore. And even if he was a great person trying to do good, in very powerful countries, some people would come to him and say, "Hey, now you're doing what
Yeah.
yeah, what we say." Like the story of American presidents, when they take the post, people in black suits with black backs, let's say, are coming to them and
Yes.
then dictate their own rules. But uh, I have never heard of direct democracy, but of small experiments in participatory budgeting in
Yes.
Poland, in New York, in Peru, as far as I remember. But
Well,
they had a little, very, very little turnover. Yeah, what are you going to say?
I think Switzerland and California also have direct democracy from time to time. And I shared your criticism of representative democracy for sure. However, I think the main problem is not in whether it's direct or representative. The main problem is the power that the process has, right? So whether you vote directly or whether it's representative voting, if they can just change the taxes on it directly like this, or they can easily, find ways to extort the other 49% or come up with all sorts of crazy stuff, then there's no mechanism to prevent that, right? In Prospera, we have two mechanisms, right? At least one is that there's a private arm that can veto essentially, right? And then there's also this legal stability guarantee again, so that if you come here, you set up certain conditions, it's not that that can be voted away, right? You have contractual rights to those conditions, and that
You
is the
have
key
something
part.
immutable. Yeah,
Yeah, you have something immutable.
that's important indeed. Yeah. In the Vortex DAO we're building right now, in order to we do want to create direct democracy, which is not purely democratic because well everybody can join, but there is a high intellectual barrier. So in
Right.
order to be to get a vote, and to get a vote not on everything but on only on something you're expert in, you have to show your expertise by giving a proposal that is approved by the experts which are already inside. So it's kind of slowly growing DAO of experts where everyone can vote. Well, if it's general something, the rules of the DAO itself, of course, everybody votes. But if it's
Yeah, yeah,
engineering, I won't have a vote most likely.
right.
And yeah,
Yeah, and I think that could make sense, right? I think the what makes sense is very different for a jurisdiction versus a startup, right? So as a jurisdiction, to some extent you create the rules for everyone in that jurisdiction, and so you have to be much more careful. You have to have much less voting. You have to have much less change, and that's how you create stability and predictability, which is what creates economic freedom and growth. So, however, as a startup, you need to be able to move fast, change things, iterate, right? So, I think the dynamics are extremely different.
yeah, that's an interesting take. So the question that I'm very curious about, because last time we talked to each other was 3 years ago, and now you've made so many things. I'm not sure if you were like in the first days of Prospera, yeah, but I wonder the cold start problem. How do you start a project like that? Like how
Yeah,
exactly were the first half a year, let's say, what was done in order to achieve where you are now, guys?
yeah. No, so I was not on the first day, unfortunately. So the law passed in Honduras in 2013, so way back, right? And then Prospera was founded in 2017, but then there was a bunch of regulatory stuff we had to get right, and then we broke ground in 2020. And then, however, and then in 2022 we bought a resort. So, around 80 villas, golf course, hotel. And then last year only, we finalized the building of the Duna Tower, which is the first big residential tower, which is where I live. And so, and so I was actually the first one to move into that tower. So in that way, I'm the first, but the project way precedes me. But still, we still haven't gone further from 0 to 1. We still have somewhat of a cold start problem, right? I think we would need to be like 1,000 people living here for the cold start problem to really be solved, quote unquote. So yeah, I guess what we're doing is we're just trying to invest in infrastructure, having enough restaurants, having enough events. Now we have events basically every month. So whenever you want to come here, there will be some event happening. Most likely, we're building grocery stores. We have a shuttle, the Liberty Line, a bus. It's paid bus shuttle, and doing a few of these things to be able to create enough quality of life, and for it to be sustainable.
It's like blueprint grocery stores or more basic ones.
Both. We have an entrepreneur doing blueprint in the Duna Tower, so you can buy that most days if you want to. And then I guess I can say something we haven't launched yet, but something we're ideating about is like some way of giving some form of homesteading program, right? Where if you're an early resident, let's say one of the 1,000 first ones, you might be able to get some equity in the Prospera real estate, let's say, based on how many days you spend inside the zone. This is not something we've launched yet, but we're kind of crafting the program now, drafting
You
the
know,
program now.
in the world where people are completely unable to buy a property and the prices of housing they damn high, some people just thinking I will rent for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Or as a maximum, I will buy some land in a far, far, far away land and live there in a small house when I will be close to my deathbed, let's say. But
Yes.
yeah, it sounds exciting even for me, to come live somewhere in a nice place. I think comparable to the place I live right now, and wow, just for living there, you're gonna get some equity.
Yep.
This is wow. So we have a question. Well, I think yeah, is the first question coming in. Um, will Prospero have public budget and taxation? Public in terms of like public
So
transparent or
well, so yeah, so to go deeper into the structure, right? So Prospera can be seen as a public-private partnership, right? So we have the public arm, which I talked about. It's called Prospera Sede. It's essentially autonomous municipality of Honduras, right? So it's structured as a municipality, but it's autonomous. And then we have Prospera Inc., which is where I work, and there's a public partnership. And so the council that is passing any laws is divided up in half by the public and half by the private, essentially. And so the public arm, they have some public budget, right? They take 44% of the taxes. Prospera Inc. takes 44% of the taxes, and then 12% goes to the Honduran government. But yeah, and so the public side has some public budget, correct? And we both tax, right? We divide up the taxes I mentioned before, right? The 5% personal income tax, the corporate tax, the income, the sales tax, and the Georgia's land value tax. And yeah, everything is public essentially. You can go to the Prospera Sede website, and there you can see everything on the public side, including any council meetings or council notes or any of that.
and is it all like software for let's say voting discussions public part?
Oh,
Is it all your software like just privately
to
developed?
be honest, we it was a while ago we voted, so I think we have a vote coming up. I think maybe at some point, maybe next year. And so until then, we'll definitely have a more high-tech digital voting system, probably something on the blockchain. But we're so busy with other stuff currently. But certainly, when the kind of election season is coming up, we'll have some nice way of doing it.
That's interesting. When the next round of elections will be held?
To be honest, I don't know the exact month. I know it's in the coming year, but I don't know the month.
Interesting. So, since your Lonis is a VP of growth, could you tell us a little bit of insights into how you actually grow Prospero? What approaches work and what not? It feels to me like at this stage, simply DMing people who you think would come is even a viable approach, right? So, like you're calling me every year, and I'm on the brink of visiting at least for a few weeks or a month, or like what works, what not in terms of the growth of Prosper, because basically what you need is new businesses, new entrepreneurs coming, and
Correct.
that's the main yeah, that's the main thing, right?
It's the main thing, correct? No, so there are, I guess, a few things, right? It's a very multimodal problem, right? Because there's the there's the people coming in, and there's the real estate, and then there's the businesses. So on the top level, right, there's just awareness build. Everyone needs awareness. So we're working a lot with independent creators like YouTubers. We had a big video with Jess Theory recently, and we're part of the Don't Die, Brian Johnson Netflix documentary. So that brings a lot of awareness on the top level. And then we have just weekly onboarding calls. So you can join the Prospera onboarding call every Wednesday to get more, info. And then most crucially, we have a lot of events every month, right? Because whether you want to do business here or move here or whatever else, you first want to come here and check it out and get a sense of it and the people here, right? So, we have Prospera weekends every month, which is a weekend where you can come over and check it out. We have longer biotech, longer crypto, longer Bitcoin events as well. It's all on the website. So just making sure that we have a lot of diverse events that are interesting to people. It's a big part of it. And then figure out, okay, how do we create as many quality of life improvements on the ground as possible? So, everything from grocery stores, bus shuttles, all those things. And then, of course, in parallel to that, we have to make sure that there's enough real estate, right? So I'm spending a decent amount of time just talking to real estate developers and have them come in and build out more housing and more commercial spaces. Because the Duna Tower, it's not filled up yet, but it's getting filled up. So it's kind of, working on all of those layers. And then, of course, we have the businesses as well. You can create a Prospera business online, right? So it's like you can have a Delaware business, you can have a Dubai or Cayman business, or you can have a Prospera business. And you can create that in 6 clicks online. We have banking partners, very low taxes and friction and all of that. So, focus on having people know about that company registrar and having people incorporate, whether it's online businesses or physical businesses, is also a big thing.
So you know that the prediction markets are still considered as gambling. Is gambling allowed as a business in Prospera?
Well, so in Prospera, prediction markets are not considered gambling, and we don't regulate gambling in that way. We have a few regulated industries, which are mostly around healthcare, construction, energy, and then finance and banking and stuff like that. But we regulate those industries in a very different way, right? So in typically, if how it's regulated in other places is that you have to deal with the FDA, right, or the SEC, or the NRC, or the FTC, these public agencies, and they have terrible incentives. They basically only have incentives to minimize risk and shut you down, right? They don't have incentives of having more innovation. So in Prospera, but still, you need some amount of regulation sometimes. So what we have is we found a way to inject market mechanisms into the regulatory process. So in Prospera, to go to market with your bank or your gene therapy or your construction project, you need to go to market of insurance companies, and you need to be able to get the liability policy from an insurance company, right? So insurance companies, they become the regulators, because they will look at your business and your regulation of choice, whether it's French law or German law or Delaware law or a law you kind of proposed yourself, an optimal regulation, we call it. And then they will see if this is safe and legit enough to underwrite, right? And so, obviously they will not, if you want to do heart transplants, you don't have a surgeon on the team, you will never get a policy because something could go wrong, and then you will get sued to hell in the arbitration centers, right?
Interesting approach. Yeah. So you can outsource it to insurance companies, right?
Correct. Again, we want to have as small public layer as possible, right? Most things should be ideally privatized because it works much better that way.
This is true. Okay. Well, my question, like personal, going back to the growth, right, stage. How did Prosper get the first, let's say, citizens? Was it again through general awareness, then weekly calls, and
yeah. Well, I wouldn't say citizens. I would say residents, right? It's you can't be a citizen of Hong Kong, right? Because Hong Kong is still part of China, and we're sewn inside Honduras. But to get residents, we it's awareness building. To be honest, sometimes you build it and they come to us, and that happened with biotech and longevity medicines specifically, right? When we started Prospera, the founders didn't think too much about biotech and gene therapy, but then the market kind of came to us, right? So Garm Clinic is one of the clinics they set up here.
No, that's because of all the legal hurdles they have to go through in their countries, but it's much easier to start working on it in Prosper. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So
Exactly.
Something not just internet based, right? But
exactly, yeah. So we have a clinic here. They administer longevity drugs that are not available anywhere else, right? So Brian Johnson, he came a year ago here to take his gene therapy in the Garm clinic. In that case, he used Minicircle. There was also Unlimited Bio, which is another company doing gene therapy in Prospera, and it's not available anywhere else, basically. And so, um, and so, yeah, that's kind of how we grew initially, just in that space, in the biotech and longevity space. And then we started getting a lot of interest from crypto as well. So we now have a bunch of crypto founders here. We have Infinita, that is running, formerly Vitalia, that is running, a biotech and crypto accelerator and startup program and investor network here in Prospera. And now recently we also have the Bitcoin district, which is a bunch of Bitcoiners who are like building out like a Bitcoin beach equivalent, like they have in El Salvador, but in Prospera. And so we have all of these kind of organic projects. We call them L2 partners, right? If we're the layer one, the jurisdiction layer, then these L2 partners, they are kind of, creating attention and value around their communities here.
That's very interesting. So we at Humanode are finally building the, that we had that one human one node part done
Yes.
even back in 2022, right? And that's right after we met, we launched the main net. So but we've been distracted a lot doing the biometric service as a Sybil resistance, and that's why we just this year working with most of engineers on finally doing the one node one vote thingy, which is the hardest one, because we have to solve, not only Sybil resistance, but how do we create a complex social system, not just based on let's say your equity, your stake, but yeah, without it, that's our goal. And we are launching experiments right now where people can come and vote, come, I mean, put a proposal, and first the team votes, but if somebody gets their proposal approved, and if the proposal was pretty easy, they also have to execute the proposal, then they also have the vote. Would you have any ideas on top of your head what Humanode team should do in order to get the first active people coming in with the proposals? Of course, there is a budget, small budget for it, which will grow. And yeah, how do we get this, let's say, first 100 proposers, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. It's a quite difficult problem without getting enough community participation, especially getting enough informed community participation. And with D work, which is was what I worked on before, which is this Web3 task manager, right? So we had around 100,000 people signed up, and it was funded by Paradigm. And then what we did there was kind of having some financial incentives tied to it, right? And one thing we didn't get to finalize, but something we were thinking about is like, Robin Hanson was the first one to talk about this. It's like if you can have prediction markets for proposals, right, or decision markets, right, where you kind of where you basically decide what to do based on what people think will lead to the most amount of growth, right? So there's kind of these conditional markets, right, where you can trade on, okay, if you do decision X, then what is the token price after that, or what is the growth after that? And if you do the decision Y, what is the token price after that? And so then people will trade on those, and then you'll see what the participants actually think will lead to the KPIs that you would be looking for in a more market-based way.
But again, when you started D-Work, let's say, or whatever organization starts their D-Work, they start with making the tasks themselves, and then people can come and pick the tasks and execute them. So it was mostly like top down, let's say, proposal, task creation, or bottom up. I think in the beginning it really was top down, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the beginning, it's top down. The core team are creating the tasks, and then over time, the community can do more of it.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting approach. Maybe we should take it as well. Just so let's say we came up with a task, and then I'm writing to my friends, hey, you want to take it, huh? I know you can do
Right.
that. Yeah. Here is the reward, right here, waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, cool. So, well, we have 15 minutes left, and I believe there are some tricky questions for you, Lonis, from our community. Is there a Prospera police? Probably the most favorite question.
There will not be a Prospera military, but there is a Prospera police. So, within our zones, similar to Hong Kong, again, we have, our own jurisdictional layer, right? And so the thing that we implement from the host country is basically the criminal code. So the criminal law of Honduras applies within our zone. However, crucially, it's administered by the Prospera court and the Prospera police. So, which is crucial because in many cases, the police can be, in many countries, the police can be quite corrupt in developing markets. And so it's crucial that we have our own police, but then we implement the Honduran criminal code. And so far, we haven't really needed the police because we have private security, and you can privatize most things, and it will work as good or better. But over time, there will be some more police functions, and yeah.
Got it. So there will be no military, at least.
No
Because
military.
you outsourced it to the government. Yeah. And I was wondering, for example, yeah, let's say a situation with someone stabs someone. Okay. Well, what happens next? Is it you in control of the situation, or you like?
Yeah, it would be the police or private security that would.
And
Yeah,
then your
would
courts will decide what to do with the person who stabbed someone.
correct.
And is there any novelty in how your courts work? Because any decentralized even organization should have courts, unless you have simple slashing. But let's not talk about proof of stake and proof of work. Yeah,
Yes.
so we're also thinking of structuring the judicial system in some way. We already figured out what could be the crimes and possible punishments, but there should
Yeah.
be some kind of court system in place. So what kind of system do you have? Is it like you randomly probably select the residents and they go as a jury, or how does it work?
Yeah. So one quick distinction: you always need just a way to get justice, but in 99% of cases, the way to get justice is via private arbitration. That's how we set up. So private courts, right? And you can create your own private arbitration center in Prospera. Obviously, you will only get any business if you have, a credible background and you're known to be fair and affordable and quick. But yeah, most 99% of ways to get justice is via private arbitration. Now, in the case you mentioned where someone gets stabbed, well, then and it's a criminal law matter, then you go to our public court. But that's like a sliver of the cases. And
Yeah, so
in those cases, we're not innovating. We have a
yeah,
typical common law approach, typically how it would be in Texas or what have you.
in Texas. Okay, yeah. And then most of the cases are connected to business, and that's where, like, when you write the contract, you say we will go to this exact private
Right. So every
arbitration
contract has
center.
a choice of law. What law are you working on as part of this contract, and choice of venue, like where would you go to arbitrate disputes. And then we have like in default. So if you don't have a contract with someone, let's say it's a tort case, right? You just walk past someone and you steal their thing or whatever, or whatever it is. It's a tort case. Then there's a default arbitration center. So if you haven't searched Google, then you go to the Prospera Arbitration Center, which is a private entity that it would be taking care of that case.
Okay, yeah. Well, seems like you put a lot of thought into it. It really sounds all making sense, just so we have interesting question. I believe the answer would be no, because Prospera is not going to become a separate state, right? You're a service to existing states, correct? Like special economic zones. And the question was like, are you going to make embassies in other zones countries? Embassies, not like just new
Yes.
territories, but embassies.
Yeah. Well, so we are. No, the law doesn't permit that. The SEDE framework doesn't permit us having embassies or passports. It does permit us having, agreements with other jurisdictions. We can sign contracts, but not not embassies. And it wouldn't
Yeah.
really add a value to what we're trying to do, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to prove out, how the have the most free market model in the world. Seeing all the growth and innovation that leads to, and then have these zones across the world. But we wouldn't really have a need for embassies.
Yeah. So, Lonis, you already answered the last question that we have for now, which is yes, Prospera is going to establish new territories in other countries, like based on the same model. Yeah, correct.
Exactly.
Right. I think I ran out of my own questions already. So okay,
Well,
well, to just do just one of the conclusions that I have, right? So probably people think of Prosper as a typical network state, as described in the book of Balaji, but in fact, it's not. Right? You're not trying to become a separate state, which will have its let's say own territory, own name, which will have the its own empathies, everything on its own, right? You are like service of special economic zone for other countries to invite entrepreneurs, create new jobs, and do the taxes revenue share, let's say. So you're not per se trying to become a state at all, but
well,
yeah.
our goal is to have maximize economic and personal freedom, right? And then the question, okay, how do you maximize economic and personal freedoms? Well, you can try to go to war with a country and take some territory and have that be your own state. It's a hard approach. You can also try to negotiate to be able to annex a part of another country to your country. There's no country that will agree to that. There hasn't been any country that's agreed to that so far in history. I mean, in some cases, there's been land purchases between countries, existing countries, but it's never been from a private group of individuals. And so the way that actually has some history and proof of working is if you to maximally advance economic and personal freedom is to create zones within existing countries. However, crucially, being protected by international treaty and international law and having many zones all around the world, so you can't really get bullied in any one zone, right? Because if any one zone goes, the whole country kind of start to get shaky, then you can move many of the resources and economic activity to other zones in other countries.
Yeah, that makes you anti-fragile, not dependent on just one country or let's say one president who is gonna be elected next year. You don't even know him, and bam, he's like against it all. Yeah.
Right, and to be honest, that's the case in Honduras, right? We have an administration that is against Prospera. However, because the
Oh,
way we set it up, that they can't really do anything legally. We have a 50-year period of stability. So if they choose to, remove the law, we'll still have 50 years of operational capacity, and that is according to international law, right? So we're ingrained in the U.S. Honduras trade treaties, the U.K. Honduras trade treaties, the Kuwait Honduras trade treaties, and this gives this durability. That even if we currently have a president who says that they want Prosper out, they can't actually do anything legally or operationally.
so look, but these laws they were intact before Prospera even started, right?
Right.
Interesting. And like the founders, the founding members like of Prospera just saw this and they say, okay, we're gonna do it, or
Yeah, so the fundamental legal framework were created by two Honduran economists, Octavio Sanchez, Carlos Pineda.
okay, so
And
it was created by the Honduras economists themselves. Nice. Okay, so
correct.
yeah.
And then Prosper, the founder CEO Eric and co-founder Gabe, they kind of came in 2017 and said, okay, here is where we can build on our model, because they've been looking at creating their model in the US or elsewhere in other countries, and they found, oh, actually, Honduras is the only country in the world that has this legal framework that allows us to build this special
That
zone with our own.
yeah, that allow you to be legally secure for at least 50 years, right?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So if we don't have any more questions, it's like 7 minutes left, and I ran out of them. Just
Well, it
more and
was.
more reasons to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was great to be here, and I would maybe say to anyone listening in, if you're interested, we have weekly onboarding calls. You can go to the Prospera website and sign up, prospera.co. And most importantly, though, come and check it out in person. We have a big crypto community. We have by far the highest percentage of crypto transaction of any jurisdiction in the world. I paid for my protein drink this morning with a Blink wallet on Lightning, on Bitcoin. We have a stable coin on Solana and Ethereum, where many people pay their rent and pay the mortgages even. And so basically the entire economy runs on crypto here, certainly largest in any other jurisdiction. And so it's quite a nice place as well. It has beaches, sun, all of that. So come and check it out. We have events basically every month. And yeah, I guess that's what I would say.
Is it a good place for people loving extreme sports like surfing, kite surfing? Do you have any of those spots?
Well, so Roatan has the world's second largest coral reef. So that's where the 1 million visitors go for, is free diving and scuba diving.
Okay, but no waves whatsoever.
There are some waves. There are some people doing surfing as well, but that's not the major tourist attraction here. The major attraction here is the free diving and scuba diving. But you can do other water sports as well.
Okay. I'm just not a big fan. My ears hurt a lot under the water. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I'm a professional swimmer, but I can't dive at all. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
unfortunately.
I mostly do just I guess yeah, being on the top of the water. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Lonis, that was great. That revealed a lot. I hope people outside of Humanode community are also gonna see the video, and we're gonna bring even more awareness to you. I'm gonna make it happen by a little bit of shilling.
Perfect.
Okay, so as we always do. And yeah, looking forward to your further development, man. That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and yeah, looking forward to hanging out in person here at some point as well.
Yep, me too. So I think we can end this right now. Fiona, help us out, and see you all. Okay,
Ciao.
yeah, we're done.